Friendship isn't the big things, it's a million little things. Hello there friends, and welcome to this, another episode of A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is where we break down and discuss episodes of TV shows that you may not have even heard of. I believe these TV shows need a little more love, and that is what this platform is here to do. Each week we will be covering different shows from all over the globe. We'll be breaking down each episode, giving you the main highlights, and going through it bit by bit. But for now, I think it's best that we find out what's on the menu today. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 6 of season 8, and today we're going to be getting into Santa Clarita Diet for the final season, season 3 of this fucking excellent zombie show. And I just cannot wait to get into this series, because I genuinely can't remember how it ends. But from the first episode that I've just watched, it is excellent. It is so funny. They don't miss a beat at all, and they're straight back into the plot line. And Timothy Olyphant's on point. He's so funny, and Drew Barrymore is just great. And then Liv Hewson is a delight as always. So I really can't wait to get back into this series. It's one of my favourite shows and just keeps me smiling throughout. And speaking of smiling, honestly, Timothy Olyphant in this, the first episode he smiles at one point and I genuinely laughed out loud because the man can just sell it. He's just so good at what he does. And he plays this awkward, semi-put-upon guy because he's just trying to please his wife and he's just trying to get on with his life as well. But obviously, it's not going to be that easy for him because there is a shit ton going on in his life. And as for that, let's get into what happened last season. At the end of last season, we saw that Sheila was going around and she was rounding up this group of Nazis to try and rid the area of the problem that it was having. Obviously, the world we're currently living in, we could do with a Sheila right now, but I digress. And so due to the fact that she's been killing these people, obviously the police department has started to get wind of the fact that people are dying. Even if they are bad people, they obviously still need to investigate. And that's where their neighbour Anne has come into this, played by Natalie Morales. And of course at the end of last season we saw Anne head out to the desert, just as Sheila and Joel were trying to bury Gary's severed head. Obviously we know that at the end of last season, or the beginning of last season in fact, that they found Gary in the grave that they dug for him previously and his head was still alive because obviously Sheila had turned him into a zombie, but he had no extremities, no arms, legs, whatever to get anywhere, so he was just stuck until someone came back for him. And of course at the end of last season as well, Joel and Sheila found this farm which was basically trying to create a bunch of zombies. They were going to sell these bad oysters that essentially turned people into zombies. And that's what happened to Sheila. And at the end of last season, we saw that this farm got burnt down. Now, as for Eric and Abby being Joel and Sheila's child, and Eric being the next door neighbour, they ended up on their own little mission last season. Because there is a fracking site just on the edges of town, and they decided to go and blow up this fracking site. And so, at the end of last season, we saw that Anne had caught Joel and Sheila in the desert, trying to bury Gary's head. And just after Anne declares Sheila as a god or a goddess, Anne thinks that Sheila is the vessel that God speaks through on earth and has been sent there to try and get these bad people off the streets. Anne starts to worship her, and then all of a sudden there's an explosion in the background which is the cause of Abby and Eric. So there's a lot to go at, there's a lot to go into this season with, and I'm just going to get into it because it's fucking excellent. So, this is Santa Clarita, Season 3, Episodes 1-3. Episode 1, Woof and Loaf, which, according to Sheila, means great husband that she loves, or some shit. So, of course, what I also forgot to mention was that at the end of last season, Sheila and Joel were about to run away, because they knew that Anne had found out about them, and they couldn't risk her coming after them. So they were going to leave Abby with her aunt and they were just going to flee. Which obviously wouldn't have pleased Abby, but at that point they just needed to get away and they needed their daughter to be safe. However, in the end, obviously what actually happened was the fact that Anne now celebrates Sheila and thinks that she is the almighty on Earth. She doesn't know that Sheila eats people, but she does know that she kills people. And she wants to help out in whatever way possible. Joel, once again, just wants to live a normal life. The poor guy cannot fucking catch a break. Because that very day, as soon as he says, I just want to have a normal life, there is a bang at the door, and when he goes, he finds a note saying, the knights are coming. And so Joel now has to deal with whoever these knights are. And it seems that they are written in ancient Serbian texts that Joel and Sheila have procured over the years, and now Joel has to go and find out if these knights still exist. And so he goes over to the Serbian embassy, and when he gets there, he's confronted by a man who we see at the beginning of the episode, who was literally torturing a zombie back in Serbia a week earlier. And it seems that this man wants to do experiments on Sheila, and that is why he's in the States. And so Joel heads over to the embassy, and when he speaks to these people, they deny any knowledge of these knights. It seems that they aren't actually the knights at all, but they are something totally different, because after Joel leaves, they mention that they need to stop the knights before they get to these people. So I think we met the knights in the last season. They were following Joel and Sheila around quite a lot and going into places where Joel and Sheila had already been earlier on in that day, so we know that they're on the trail. As for Joel in this episode, he ends up walking into this Serbian embassy, and honestly, one of the funniest things I've seen is him telling them that he is a scholar of some sort, and then he takes out a pen, waves it at them as if to say, see, and then puts it back in his pocket like he's proving anything. Like he's... Joel is one of the funniest characters I've ever watched on TV. He genuinely makes me... I mean, I'm just relaying it to you now, and I just can't stop laughing. I think the man is fucking hilarious. Sheila, however, because they were going to go on the run, has ended up running out of food. She obviously got rid of her last stash because she needed to get rid of it because they were going away, and obviously Anne had found out she couldn't just leave body parts hanging around. And so the last bit that she actually had is now gone as well. It's rotted as she's been going about her day. So she needs more food. And this means that she has to go out and find some. She obviously wants to get rid of the Nazis that were in the area, so she decides to pick on one of those. When Anne comes over, and Anne is obviously praising her again, she asks Anne for help, which obviously Joel is going to think is a bad idea because he doesn't want any more people in on this. But Sheila is just gung-ho, and she just wants to get everything sorted and so she can eat again. Joel and Sheila end up going over to this Nazi's house, and when they get there, this Nazi knows who they are already, and that they probably have been killing his friends. And so he tells his other friends that he's going to keep these two here and they need to get over as soon as possible. Sheila is obviously determined to kill this guy, and as soon as he comes out of his bedroom and has a gun in his hand, Sheila tells Joel to get behind the couch and then proceeds to take this guy out. Obviously, if Joel gets hit by a stray bullet, then that's bad because Joel will die, whereas Sheila obviously won't. She's already took 2 shots from Anne in the previous episode. And so she proceeds to end up eating this guy as much as she possibly can until the other Nazis turn up. Then once they start to bang on the door, Joel and Sheila have to barricade themselves in. And just as Joel gives up and says, look, you need to contact Anne, we need her here, we need her help, Sheila tells him, I've already done it. She knew that Joel would cave eventually. And then Anne turns up and saves the day. Of course, Anne wants to help Sheila out as much as she can, but Sheila and Joel need to take this body for themselves so that Sheila can eat. Anne thinks that they're just going to take it out to the desert and burn it, so Anne tells them that that's what she's going to do. So their efforts end up in vain, because even though this guy's dead, Sheila can't take any of the body. And at the end of the episode, we find out that Anne has actually set up some sort of cult or church that celebrates the miracle that is Sheila. And she's got many people in the group already. I'd say maybe 10, but that's quite a lot for a brand new group. And they're already telling people about it. Of course, Sheila has told Anne that she can't tell anyone because they want to keep it a secret. So now Anne has to tell this group of 8 to 10 individuals to keep stum, which is just going to be more and more difficult. As for Abby and Eric, they obviously come back and they start to talk about the night before and what happened. but it all seems to be very coded, and when Eric's mom finds out about this, obviously she's thrilled because the coding sounds like they had sex. So it's things like, I can't believe we did it last night, it was so explosive, it was this, it was that, I can't believe that it came that hard, or whatever it was. And it's all been misconstrued by his mother, who wants them to get together. And so she starts telling them how great they are together and how good of a couple they are and blah blah blah. She also tells Anne this, and Anne obviously is thrilled for them as well. But they start to probe Anne on what happened the night before, because obviously they were at this explosion, they know what happened, they set it off. And so Anne tells them that the investigation that the Sheriff's Department has been doing is no longer underway, which both Abby and Eric are relieved about because they think they've gotten away with it. However, it turns out that this is eco-terrorism, and therefore the FBI are coming in as well to investigate this. So things just got a hell of a lot worse for the family and everyone involved. They've got these knights coming after them, they've got the Serbian government coming after them, and they now have the FBI. Episode 2, Nighttime. As though we start off picking up from the last episode. Now, in the last episode, we saw that Sheila was concerned about Ramona's Mr. Ball-Legs. Now, Mr. Ball-Legs is the creature that comes out of a person who has been turned into a zombie. And it's something that seems to stick around with them the whole time that they are undead. But since Ramona left town in the last season, Ramona was also a girl who ended up being a zombie as well. But she left and left her Mr. Ball-Legs in a tank in her apartment. And so Sheila felt guilty and started to look after it. Sheila's own Mr. Ball-Legs is actually in the refrigerator, I believe, because Sheila never knew what to do with it. And so she just left it in there. But Sheila is concerned about it because it's been looking a little down. So she's actually brought it back to the house. She used to have it in her lockup that she uses as a killing room. But recently it's not been looking too good, so she brought it home because she feels sorry for it. But later in the episode she actually meets up with the Knights of Serbia. And since they don't know who she is, they tell her that this ball, if it is away from the person who is actually its host, it starts to die. And so Sheila is now also on a mission to get Ramona to come and pick him up. Because like I say, she feels sorry for this creature and potentially it could die. As for Sheila and Joel, they're going to see Ron. Now, Ron, at the beginning of last season, was Joel's roommate in the asylum that Joel checked himself into because obviously he thought he was going a bit crazy with the fact that his wife was a zombie. And then throughout last season, it seemed that occasionally Ron would pop up again. However, in the last episode, the person who put the knife in the door, Sheila had Anne look into whose fingerprints were on the knife. And it turns out that it was obviously Ron's. And so Sheila and Joel go over to see him and he welcomes them in, but tells them that he doesn't know anything about the knife until they exclaim that they've had fingerprint analysis done and he confesses everything. But Ron's quite an odd character, so every time they try and explain something to him, if he gets distracted by something, they have to explain what it is before he can carry on. And he will just fixate on the thing until they answer his questions, even though they're the ones trying to interrogate him. He knows that obviously the Knights of Serbia are coming for Sheila and Joel. He met with them at the end of last season. And so Sheila and Joel try and find out who this guy is, who and where this person is. However, just as they'd left their own home, they were confronted by Chris and Krista, their arch nemesis. And it's here I realised where the plot was going. I remembered something, and I'm pretty sure this is where it's going. But Chris and Krista are obviously obnoxious pricks. But of course, now the fact that Anne is on the side of Joel and Sheila, when they start being arseholes to both Joel and Sheila, Anne comes over and uses her authority to basically show these two up. And of course, Anne wants to please Sheila, so she gets the idea in her head to look into these two as well, which of course is going to end up being a disaster, as we can already tell. But Sheila and Joel leave her to it and go off to see Ron. Obviously then he mentions the Knights of Serbia, and they go off to meet these guys as well. Once they get to their house, they make up some cock and bull story, as they always do. They always get into a scrape and have to be certain other people. And it turns out that this Knight of Serbia who has been chasing them is going to be leaving. He says that he's going to be going to, I think it's Hawaii, with his girlfriend, and he's going to be staying there and living there, and that's going to be it. And so he is no longer going to be a Knight of Serbia. However, it turns out that his brother, who is a former army sniper, is now going to be taking up the mantle. And it seems that he is rather intimidating and rather scary. So before, they had to deal with this guy who was a little bit of a hippie in all fairness, and now they're going to have to deal with a former military man. But because Joel and Sheila know the area so well, they basically tell these Knights of Serbia that they will help them in their quest, and that they will track down whoever it was who is basically them, who is a realtor, and who is very much the description of Joel and Sheila. And so they head off, and they build a website that actually, they use stock photos of this couple that looks exactly like the type of people that they're looking for. And so they're going to try and trick these Knights of Serbia into seeing that these people did live in the area, but now, since they know the Knights of Serbia are after them, they've left, and maybe they should go too, as in the Knights. But before that plan can come together, Anne comes over and tells Joel and Sheila that she's made their little problem go away, because she's actually done some digging on Chris and Krista and found out that a few years back there was an issue with some financial things, and Chris and Krista are actually criminals. And so she sent it to a friend of hers who works at a paper, and they have published a story. And of course, the Knights of Serbia have read this story, and they have seen a photo, and Joel McHale and Timothy Olyphant look very similar, and Maggie Lawson and Drew Barrymore look very similar, so Chris and Krista are now in the crosshairs of the Knights of Serbia. As for Abby and Eric, Abby is pissed because Eric keeps telling everyone that they are in a relationship even though they aren't, because if they are going to get together, Abby wants it to be natural, but obviously Eric has always wanted this. He has always been 15 steps ahead of her on this subject. But she also finds out that on her ex-boyfriend's social media, when she was planning this explosion, he's actually posted some pictures of those two at the site. And so now she's tasked Eric to go and speak to him to try and get these posts taken down. When Eric speaks to him and he starts to suspect Abby, Eric tells him, look, it's because I'm jealous. Me and Abby have started seeing each other and I've got jealous and I can't help it, but can you take the post down? Her ex agrees to it and takes the post down, but of course, by this point, everyone else in the school has heard. So when Abby ends up coming into school and speaks to some of the pupils that are there, they start to inquire about her new relationship. Because of how disappointed she is, Eric sees how badly she's taken this and tells her, look, I'll tell you what, we'll just split up. And in the middle of the corridor, they do this really dramatic breakup where everyone around them's thinking that we always saw problems with those two, and it's so fucking daft. But probably the quickest get together and break up I've seen on screen. It was brilliant. But that just shows the type of person that Eric is. He's always willing to do something for Abby. And, you know, it's one of those things where you want them to get together because they are quite cute together. But Abby does seem very independent, whereas Eric really doesn't. Bless his little heart. Episode 3, We Let People Die Every Day. And I forgot to mention at the end of the last episode that Sheila and Joel get a visit from two of the people that are now in Anne's church. So they get a bit of a shock knowing that Anne has actually set up this church and is talking to people about Sheila and her miracle. And so the first thing that they need to do is try and stop Anne from doing this. So they have her over and they try and get her to see sense that she can't just be talking to people about this because it's meant to be private, and they don't want people just turning up at the house. It's dangerous for people to be doing that. And so they just want to live a normal life, and Anne isn't helping them whatsoever right now. They try and convince her that it's a message from God that she needs to stop helping them, because it seems to be the only way that Anne is going to take any notice. But she won't take it on board, and she walks out in a huff. However, Sheila and Joel end up having a different issue to deal with then, because it seems like Sheila and Joel, ever since that night out in the desert, haven't paid Gary any attention since they brought him home and put him in the basement. And so they have to go down to see him. The problem is, they were meant to give him the serum that stops him from degenerating, and so bits of him wouldn't fall off, and he would basically look just like the severed head that he was before. However, because that hasn't happened and he hasn't been eaten, he's obviously started to degrade, and when they go down into the basement, they find that he looks a hell of a lot more different. And of course, he ends up being played by a different actor in this season. So in seasons 1 and 2, it was Nathan Fillion, and in this one, it's Alan Tudyk. But it's a very, very clever way that they do it. So there is an obvious change, because Alan Tudyk don't sound like Nathan Fillion. And when they're talking to him, they say, well, there is an obvious change in your voice. And he goes, yeah, it's because my voice box fell out. So that's the reason that he sounds obviously different. And it's just creative things like that in this series that really make me laugh, because it's just a bizarre concept to have, but it's a very, very good way to get around it. But while they're talking, they get a phone call, and it's from one of the Knights of Serbia. And it turns out that they obviously know that it's Chris and Krista it's Krista that is the zombie. And so they're going to go after her. And so Sheila and Joel don't know what to do. But Gary suggests that maybe if they show this knight that Krista actually eats, then he can't kill her because he'll know that she's human. They head out to somewhere where they know that Krista is going to be turning up, and they sit down to eat. They're hoping that when Krista turns up, they can just film her eating and they can leave. But while they're in there, Krista actually spots them, and they have a very tumultuous relationship, the four of them. Chris and Krista and Sheila and Joel have this very bitchy relationship where basically they will snipe at each other at all times. And especially Chris and Krista, they think they're above Joel and Sheila, and therefore they will constantly put them down. So when they see that they're at this place, they go over, insult them, and then leave, which obviously means that they don't get any food. So now Joel and Sheila have to try and come up with another plan before this guy goes and kills Krista. However, the debate throughout is that Krista and Chris are such arseholes to these two that maybe, just maybe, they could just let her die. But they keep thinking about the moral implications of this, and that if they just let her die, but knew that they could prevent it, then are they really good people? Which is nice to know that those two, even though Chris and Krista are fucking awful to them, that they can basically still have the morality to go, well, we need to save this person. They're not bad people, they're just arseholes. And so they come up with another plan. They know that this Knight of Serbia is going to be turning up at Krista's house, and he is going to have some food with him. He's going to try and force her to eat it, and if she doesn't, he's going to kill her. Joel and Sheila turn up beforehand and try and make their excuses and try to make Krista see sense that she will eat the food that's put in front of her. However, Krista doesn't want to do anything, especially when it comes to Joel and Sheila. So when this Knight of Serbia is about ready to kill Krista, Sheila ends up taking a pen and stabbing Krista in the arm, which obviously she will then bleed, and therefore they'll be able to get away with it. Obviously, it's assault at that point, so there's a lot worse that could happen, but for now, they should be okay. At least this guy's not going to kill her. He leaves and obviously is a bit distraught that he was about to kill a live woman, and not the zombie that he thought she was. But Krista takes the pen out of her arm, and she's so pissed off that she slams it into Joel's chest. And so Joel ends up with a pen hanging out of his chest as well. The look on his face is just priceless, but thankfully both of them bled, so therefore no one is the zombie in that room, apart from the obvious, but nobody is suspecting Sheila at this point. However, when they head outside and they start talking to this Knight of Serbia, saying that there is no one in the area that is a zombie, so he can just leave. This is all getting caught on camera by the Serbian government, who are obviously looking into Sheila and Joel and the Knights of Serbia to try and find this zombie. So now they're getting one step closer. Also, interestingly, throughout the episode, Sheila keeps talking about how she wants Joel to be with her throughout the rest of her life. She can see that one day Joel will die, and she doesn't want that. She wants him to stay who he is. But Joel now has this existential crisis of, if my wife bites me and I become immortal, then what happens? Are me and her going to have to just constantly be killing people? And he's not sure if he can actually deal with that just yet. And so, right now, he doesn't know what to do. Abby and Eric, however, are in school, and they have an FBI agent come into the school to actually talk to them. At first, the principal tells them that this person is there to investigate every single one of the environmental club that Abby and Eric are part of. And it seems like it's going to be an intense investigation, but when the FBI agent actually talks to them, it seems like she's a lot kinder, and maybe, just maybe, they're going to get away with this. However, the tone of her voice seems a little sinister to me, and it feels like she's being all nicey nice, but actually she's going to be a right fucking pain in the arse. And so now, going into the next episode, we're going to have to see where this takes us. Okay, so this has been a very interesting start to this season, and do you know what? This show just went from strength to strength. It's really funny. The characters feel like ingrained now in the show, and it feels flawless. Watching them, especially Timothy Olyphant and Drew Barrymore when they're together on screen, they're fucking fantastic. And it's such a testament to those two actors. This show was so good. And it's such a shame that it didn't get a fourth season. I'm not advocating for going 6, 7, 8 seasons because that'll just ruin the whole thing. But I think they could have stretched this out for another season. And, you know, maybe even a fifth. But this was so good. These first 3 episodes are so funny. I forget how much I laugh at this show. And I know I say it all the time, but Jesus, they're so good. Timothy Olyphant playing a man on the verge of a fucking breakdown at all times is possibly one of my favourite things to watch on TV. The man just gets it. He's so good at his craft. And for someone who can play a serious character so well and do it with such comic timing, he's brilliant. Now, I know they're remaking the Naked Gun films, or they're doing a version of the Naked Gun films, like, in the future. And I know Liam Neeson's playing part of it. But I'd have had Timothy Olyphant in there every fucking day, because the man can just do it. He's just that damn good. He's a straight actor with an incredibly good comic timing. But yeah, I'm excited for the rest of this season. I'm going to be sad when this is gone, because this is the one show that really makes me laugh. There's going to be others, I know there is, but this show cracks me up so much. But anyway, I'm done for today. Next episode, it's going to be Clarice. Then we're going to be back to Santa Clarita. And then we're going to be going into Loudermilk, which is something that I've never watched before. I'm only going to be watching it for this podcast, so it's going to be brand new to me. So everything, I'm going to have to take it all in and try and process what I'm seeing, and not have my memory kick in and go, oh yeah, this happens next and this happens in the future and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be fresh eyes on this. So I can't wait to do that because it's going to be fun. I'm looking at my schedule at the minute for next season as well, because I'm just looking at Ginny and Georgia, and it would seem that the day that the episode comes out for Ginny and Georgia, potentially, would be the day after it airs. So it may be a bit tight, but I'm going to try and get it so it's pretty much live, which is going to be the first time that I ever do that. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, couple of months. But by the time that comes around, I'll have forgotten all about this conversation. But I'm done for today. So, thank you for listening. I hope you're all doing well out there in a fucking crazy world. And until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. And that is it for now, amigos. And yes, I am as angry as you are at me for that sentence, but I hope you enjoyed the show and had some fun along the way. It means a lot that you are listening and supporting me. This is an independent podcast after all, and doesn't get a lot of backing, so it is great to know that you're out there, you're listening. And if you want to come talk to me on any of the platforms I'm on, just come say hi. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, and I'm even a little bit on TikTok. I don't post that much, but I'm on there. And you can also drop comments in the comment sections on any of the platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, wherever you get podcasts from. But as always, thank you for your time, and I will speak to you soon.